Again, good evening. Welcome to the Town of Shelburne's regular council meeting for June 23rd, 2025. Again, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31. We are live streaming and we will begin with the playing of the national anthem. And we'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Shelburne resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and the people of the Three Bears Confederacy. These traditional territories upon which we live, work, play, and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. And it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect past and present connections of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. Again, now we're at a point during the meeting. Our members of council may declare pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. First up, we do have the adoption of minutes. So these are minutes from June 2nd, 2025 that we had, as well as a special council meeting on June 6th. Anything about those minutes? And Walter moving, Glenn seconding. All in favor? That carries. That then does take us to public participation. Did we have any public questions?
No, sir, no questions.
Very good. That now takes us to presentations, and we do have our distinguished guests from just north of town.
Getting there, the council staff, thank you very much for having us. I'm not sure use the term distinguished, but let's start. I'm gonna see how it goes. It seems like just a little over a decade ago, I was here at this very sitting room talking about a very similar issue, and that's because I was involved in it. I remember. So we're here tonight to talk about upcoming application we face in Moana Township for Strat Aggregates, changing the classification of their operation of a sandy gravel pit, which is currently existing to under the water table quarry. I'm going to turn over to Bill, who's going to do the overview. Okay.
Thank you. Before that, I'll go through the agenda. It's a brief agenda, brief overview as well. We're going to look at the ARA permitting process, and we're going to look at the resources that are available for review as it goes along. Under the brief overview, Strata Aggregates filed an application for a quarry with the Ministry of Natural Resources on January 31st, 2025, which is now step one. The proposed quarry would be located on land currently zoned Rockland Industrial M2 and located in the west part of lot 13, in section 3 old survey. Deputy Mayor Hall will know what that is. It is currently an active pit. The gravel pit's current licensing allows for an extraction of 1.25 million tons annually, and the proposed quarry license will allow extraction up to 2 million tons. Strata Aggregates advised council during its delegation to our council on May 1st, 2025, that it would be filing step 2 of the application with the Ministry of Natural Resources in June of 2025. As of yet, I don't believe that has happened. At that point, then there's a 60-day consultation period begins when the public notice and agency circulations are completed. Our last point is our council is unable to take a position on the application until it is being formally received and reviewed in detail. Both the public and council will have the opportunity to provide feedback through the Aggregate Resources Act's notification and consultation process. Well, I'll pass it back to.
So that last point is pretty key to why we're here tonight. We're not, we haven't taken an official position. Our peer reviews are just getting started. That's a process that's going to be undertaken over the next number of months. And we'll take a position once that process is done. So that leaves the question of why we're talking to municipalities in our area. We want to make people aware of this application because some of our neighbors could potentially have some concerns that they should raise during the Aggregate Resources process. In your case here in Shelburne, some of those concerns may be water with regards to quantity and quality. As you know, everything sort of lines of being highest from southern Ontario, which sort of goes down every day. Although this is in the Nottawasaga watershed, watersheds are multiple based on topography above the ground. Not really a lot of resources under the ground. This again will be 200 change deep in certain areas, so that may have consequences for you with regards to general charge and whatnot. But one of the things that you may want to be concerned about is the traffic, because change in the qualification of the license, it's going to increase the truck count when you're going through shop. No, but you know, more restriction, so that changes that. So let's talk a little bit about the aggregate process. As Bill mentioned, first step is to submit an application for completeness, just like you do a filing application by a municipality. Strata, NDACT came to an agreement early on last year, I guess, about how that was going to go ahead. Strata sort of submitted their application for completeness a little bit before they had agreed to, but they did it anyway. They put a pause out of that ministry until they could work out some details with NDACT. We don't know if those details have been worked out. But there's a community meeting tomorrow in Lawrence Mills, 7 in the hall, being hosted by NDACT. So that we may find out the details that information. But right now it's in the first stage, which is once that review is done, it'll move to stage 2, which is when the comment, public and otherwise can get involved. Public bodies, organizations, and members of the public will have up to 60 days to file a complaint or an objection with the Strata with regards to the application. After that process is done, it moves to stage 2, where Strata will have the opportunity to confirm the application or the objections that have been submitted. They will do that by trying to address those objections to the individual objectors. Once that is complete, any remaining objections, they will send a letter of objection, will be formally then become an objector. That's a 20-day period. So we've got another 60 days in the process. Those complaints that aren't addressed then will be approximately 2 years to address that. Such a time as that 2-year clock runs out, any remaining complaints can then by the minister be sent to the Virtue OLT. Strata can take them to the OLT. That's when so rubber is still on. So that's sort of the process in a nutshell. We are a long way from the point where this may make it to the OLT. But we want to ensure that our neighboring municipalities are aware of the application, aware of the potential Concerns that they should have. Fortunately, we have to sit through this again on Thursday. We got the county council, but we are making our way around. As Charles said, as well. Make everybody works in. But you can comment or reflect. There's no obligation, so we feel that it's appropriate that we should work. With that, happy to take any questions if any. Again, we don't have official position, so I couldn't tell you what it is.
Darren.
Yeah.
Can the minister override anything objections that have not been settled? And because it is deemed as a necessary item and by the province. And I'm thinking that even if we put forward objections, say concerning traffic, which will never be resolved, doesn't matter how you try to resolve that issue. And or even water quality, they may still override anything we object to. That is a possibility, am I correct in that?
Well, the minister can set aside objections, but from my experience and from talking to our legal team, from looking at other applications, generally the minister tries not to get involved in the first 2 years of that process. Because the ministers have generally tried to let that 2 year work amongst yourselves process work itself out. But none of us here are strangers to NGOs, the target NGOs. And now with the new legislation, we're going to the special economic zones, work. So I can't. So the answer to your question is both yes and no.
And has the Nautilus Saga taken any position yet, or are they still waiting as well?
They are going to be doing their own review as you know,
Yeah.
former chair of that organization. They will get the same briefing that everybody else gets. I will be doing my shit, still sitting on that board, I say again. I'll be doing the same briefing there. They will give their review as the watershed that it's in. They have been circulated. I'm saying circulated through the process. I share review.
And you said you're doing the review at the county, and speaking with the county as well. So 124 being a county road and being, I guess, the other alternative travel for them. The county will also have their comments and basis for. And my concern, and I'm going to take account, is the quality of the roads, as those heavy trucks not only clog up our traffic downtown, but also destroy our roads. Basically, if we get no compensation for anything that they travel on and end up destroying. So that is also a concern for me. Here, hopefully, also comes. At the end of the day, we just fixed Main Street and fixed on the Sound Street, and it took us 3 years to get funding for some of those streets, and just to have them turn around and become potholes again is not something good.
Absolutely, and I mean, referring to Greenland, all routes is, except for a short portion of the Life Road, it's all county roads, which doesn't necessarily stop them from coming to each other, obviously, but it does. Budget roads, I mean, traffic and the traffic is a problem all across southern interior, whether it's for the data punch. And the damage to that road, all those roads, County Road 17 and Route 24, certainly, there's only one taxpayer, so they'll be paying through county tax to municipal taxes instead of the tax. So that's why we're involved in determining he or she concern, other than planting and fish plant. But we're, you take a whole why we do them. Well, I for Rich.
Thank you for your presentation, first and foremost. has there been any plans to expand? I know there's hydrology testing done in the specific area, I think it was. Kilometer radius
Yes.
within the. Around us. Now, is there any plans or way of doing it, an expanded hydrology to see where it does affect?
Yeah.
Other communities, and the second question to that is are there other organizations beyond NDAC that are taking a position on this? And you know, maybe a light on that.
So, to answer your first question, there has been an agreement through NDAC and Strata, which created a well monitoring program in the radius. I went through some of the well monitoring that has started happening. Okay, well, it's not doing with it. Want to remove it as well. The once we get into the peer review, there may be some additional hydrology studies that are done as a result of that, or asked for as a result of that. But I don't believe Strata has a plan to expand further than what it is currently. There are a number of documents already that sort of talk about the water in the area. A lot of that work that's done here in the area. Those rooms and names that we would have done at that time. Those underground conditions haven't changed since 12 or 14 years. There was a fantastic report done by the NBCA at that time. The Strata higher report of that. So there is groundwork, and there's also the AMOS study. Talk about the vulnerability all over this area, including Berry County and over into Sydney over there. So that's the first part of the question. Second part of the question, there are a couple of different community groups, not certainly a representative of either, as the mayor of the municipality, I won't be a member of either one of them. You two will come with that would be great. But NDAC is involved, there was another group called Just Stop It, which is involved as well, and there's a new group that just won recently, I believe, called North of 89, which is much needed as well. I believe, and we have to speak to them for clarification, but they have worked done with different other communities that signed up and
I'll just add to, I'll just add to the, your comment about, reports. On our Langston Township website, we've got all the, reports are there. Probably 18 reports, talking about hydrology, transportation, noise, whatever you, thousands of pages to read there.
Well, I understand they're blasting,
It
and
is-
it's gonna be below the water table.
Which is 200
Well
feet.
below. Currently, the agreement says that they must remain at least 1.5 meters above the water table. This could be potentially up to 2.
I guess a quick, sort of statement, I guess, like with what you said with regards to being below the water table, like. With the mega quarry, they were not gonna go below the water table, right? They were? Okay, so I'm assuming then that hopefully you can use some of that information, well, not so much the information, but just how you want, right? Moving forward with this one, I don't even understand how, if one was already defeated, why another one would even try, but I guess they have lots of money and they figure that people don't, and that they will get tired. And they'll just give up, right? So I guess the only thing I can say to anyone who's watching is don't give up. Like we won once already and we can do it again, so with regards to commenting and things like that. The more submitted the better, correct?
Yes.
I would assume. Okay, so just anyone who's watching,
The community groups can sort of help people determine what to say and how to.
perfect, right?
And I believe, like any other large application on just about anything, there will be a template simple.
Yes,
But it's my understanding, my experience, that template letters don't really.
I worry a little bit about those myself.
If you're going to comment, educate yourself on the application.
Yes,
Pick some things that are important to you and comment on those things.
yes,
That will carry very well with it.
I agree.
I, one other thing I do wanna say is a little bit of a correction. And I think it's an important one because the Island Quarry, to say it was defeated, is not accurate.
Right.
They withdrew.
Gotcha.
Now, there wasn't a ton of pressure.
Okay.
It wasn't going well for them, for sure, absolutely.
Yep.
They voluntarily withdrew,
I see.
so.
So there's no judgment to
I
say
don't want
that.
people, I don't want people to look at it and say they were defeated, it'd be easy to defeat this one. Or it'd be easy to defeat a new subdivision development.
Right,
Because each thing has been judged on its own merit, so
right.
and that's sort of where you are.
Gotcha. That's important information to know as well. Thank you.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up, is Gary's hydrology reports on website?
I don't know, it will be spread as super consultants.
Travis consultant. Okay,
I
I mean,
think some of Gary's work may be on the index websites, maybe share those reports that are on their website. Show where Gary's work material.
there, did you have a look at both of them? Was there, and was there a vast difference between the two of them, in your opinion?
Many differences, many similarities. Says,
So again, I really appreciate you coming forward tonight, giving us information, even though it's early in the process, it's always best informed and. Quite honestly, if those that are interested, obviously there's a meeting tomorrow. In Martin's Mills, so, by all means, there's a level of interest. Go and listen to what that act is gonna propose.
So, sorry, just a quick follow. In your opinion, how does Bill 5 affect this?
too early to say.
Yeah.
It's too early to say.
I mean, there,
A lot of the regulations are on. So. Find some of the fine detail. Get to be great. So,
For, basically, Bill 5 was written more or less for the ring of fire up north. And that is somewhat similar to this situation in a way, so that's where I was coming from. But my other concern is, on 124 safety of public. Because we have a lot of people that walk down the sides of those roads, and with those big trucks coming down there, I'm just waiting to hear about somebody getting run over. So that'll be something that we as a council will have to look at, I'm sure the county will have to look at that as well.
I'm working on the sidewalk over there and just figuring out who's responsible for it here.
Yeah.
Absolutely, again, as the numbers indicate, it's a 40% increase in truck traffic, regardless of what direction it's gonna flow, so. Obviously, the easy item to spot is the 124 intersection, and that means when you have trucks lining up and, getting through. So, and not wanting to push further down. So, but again, really appreciate the information, look forward to the next step up.
Thank you very much.
I'm just like, before we, and when we get information, when we get more, we'll be let you know as well.
Thank you for pouring it, because I imagine in purpose with the bus park there going in for coffee, and I didn't want to have that as the other side.
Absolutely.
Well, that's like a 10 of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you. So if I get a motion to receive. By Dan, second by Len, all in favor? Carries. Does show that we do have a second. Thank you. Evening, Brenda.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. Would you like me to share my screen then? Okay. Okay, can everyone see? Okay. So, good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to join. Many of you may already know me. I've met a number of you already from my work with the county. But tonight, I have the pleasure of being here to represent the Community Safety Wellbeing Integration Table and to present on behalf of our co-chairs, Jennifer Payne and Anna Vanderlaan. So thank you for allowing me to be here. So tonight, as I was saying, I'm here to present the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan and a bit of background around that. The plan is mandated under the Community Safety and Policing Act. It's a 4-year plan and it's a joint plan for all municipalities within Dufferin County. And it just made sense to approach it that way. We did that with the first plan, the 21 to 24 plan, as many of the community members that came together to develop this plan serve all areas of the county. We did receive guidance from the province around this, and what the province really suggested is that we focus on risk and protective factors, which we have done throughout. And we also really leverage community resources around this. And this was taken to County Council in May, where it received approval, and we will have this posted on our website and ready to be communicated out further for July 1st, which is the deadline. And one thing I just want to highlight is the results that we're presenting tonight. Really, it's a rare opportunity to take the temperature of the community on a very broad level. And I'll be able to show you as we go through how we did that. So here is our integration table across Dufferin County. It's actually made up of over 30 agencies. We received broad engagement from service providers, and we're now beginning to onboard the police boards with this as well. And in the interim, we really relied heavily on Dufferin, like on the OPP in Dufferin to help represent that sector, and they were very heavily involved throughout the whole process. So the development of the plan, it included a great deal of data gathering. We completed a community survey early in 2024. We also hosted a data deep dive in November, late November. And the purpose of that, of course, was to share the results of that survey. And then the integration table started meeting monthly afterwards to really start sifting through the data, make sense of the data, and start drafting the plan. In April, we had brought together a draft copy, which was then circulated throughout for feedback and comment. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, we were able to bring this to County Council in May, where it received approval. And I would like to highlight the plan really is strength-based. So it really highlights what we're already doing well and identifying risks and looking for ways to integrate with partnerships. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention. So the general public survey itself, we had a consultant, Jennifer Kirkham, who helped us with this and process the survey results for us. And she was quite impressed with the 607 responses that we had. It represents a confidence interval of 3.96%. And our response rate was up this year. So you'll see in the chart below, I highlighted Shelburne for you there. So the 2023-24 survey, which our most recent survey, 11.5% of the overall respondents were from Shelburne. In the 2020 survey, you'll see it was 5.7%. So we pretty much doubled our results there, which is fantastic. And Shelburne represents 13.6% of the overall population of Dufferin. So very well represented here. In identifying, when we did the data deep dive and really started to do that sense making that I was talking about, what we did was we identified 5 priority areas for the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. Our previous plan had 4 priority areas, and we were able to bring forward several of those to this plan. but you'll see here that there's a couple new ones. Okay, and of course, going through the plan itself, you're going to find a lot more detail than what I'll be sharing tonight. So I'll be just sharing the highlights. And just want to note that everything here is very much interconnected, and we're continuing to look for areas that we can integrate efforts so that we can, not have a competition between the priorities, and at best multi-solve by pooling resources as much as possible and aligning actions. And there'll be more on that soon. So again, our priority areas are listed here. I will go through each of them just at a high level. So our first priority area that I'll bring to your attention is around community safety. So again, integrated efforts on preventative measures through addressing social determinants, and also continuing the efforts to engage with the community on issues of crime, including intimate partner violence and mobility safety. And one thing we did find was that the perceptions of crime increasing were not supported by the data. So education around this is really important. And of course, two areas that do warrant continued focus are around mobility safety and intimate partner violence. We did create for each of the priority areas change statements. So what our goal is and what we would like to see achieved. And our change statement around community safety is, if the Dufferin OPP and detachment boards with support from community safety wellbeing partners continue to share information and engage with the public, we expect that the community will better understand local crime and available programs so that people feel safer. If government continues to invest in road infrastructure and traffic calming technologies, so for example, speed enforcement, we expect that increases in traffic anticipated from the growing population will be better accommodated so that mobility safety will improve. So just to bring more information around this, the OPP already has some great programs, and the focus will be to continue to promote those and make the community aware and educate about the stats versus the perceptions of crime. Our next priority area is housing and homelessness. There is a lot of attention right now on this and a lot in the strengths columns. So the focus really here is to advocate for the housing solutions we need, engage developers for affordable housing, improve service coordination, and enhance public awareness. We want to be enablers and champions for the work of the work group and task force, and recognizing that having stable housing improves outcomes across many of these other priorities. And our change statement that was developed here is, if all levels of government recognize housing as a human right and commit funding to meet the housing needs of Dufferin County, we expect that all members of the community will have equitable access to safe and affordable housing. And our next priority here is around mental health and well-being. And again, that was also on our previous plan. So mental health and well-being, it's defining mental health for the community. It's promoting building resilience, improved data collection on service usage and effectiveness, and focusing as well on youth mental health and evaluation of future needs. Our change statement around this is, if the Hills of Headwaters Ontario Health Team, Mental Health and Addictions Working Group, and other community partners work together to gather local data and improve coordinated action, we expect that Dufferin County residents will have improved access to information and services that will enable them to improve overall rates of mental health and well-being. New this year is family support priority area. So organizations continue to increase and focus on family-centered care models, awareness campaigns, neighborhood support network models, and grassroots parent outreach. Identification of gaps or underutilized supports, and sharing information about pathways to access different types of supports. The change statement that was developed around this priority area is, if local community partners who support families work together to improve coordinated action and monitor local data trends, We expect that the County of Dufferin residents will have improved, will have more resources to help them build stronger communities with family and neighbors, and overall feel better supported by their community. Our final priority area here is around food insecurity. So Dufferin County Food Insecurity Needs Assessment Research. So we're completing that. A work plan of key activities, advocating for income-based solutions, highlighting impacts on social connections and well-being, expanding programs that protect dignity and community program, and IDing immediate actions and get at root causes. So the change statement with this is if members of the Dufferin Food Access Subcommittee take action by gathering more local data and facilitating groups to work together, we expect that programs and conditions will improve so that people experiencing food insecurity in Dufferin will have better access to the food they need, as well as social and community connectedness. New this year is a section in the plan around integrated efforts. It's recognized the importance of keeping a lens on opportunities to integrate, collaborate, and communicate about priorities of the plan. And we were already starting to see this across Dufferin as well. We're starting to see more hubs, integrated efforts, and approaches to bring organizations together to provide the services in the most efficient way possible, in the most effective way possible. So it's really aligning, the plan's really aligning with actions that we're starting to see throughout the county. And of course, our lead tables. So under the community safety wellbeing plan, I spoke already about the integration table, but each of the key priority areas also has a lead organization or group coming together to do the great work that I was just talking about. So around community safety, the Dufferin OPP on behalf of the detachment boards. And as mentioned before, there is a plan to further incorporate the detachment boards into the integration tables. So once we've wrapped up and finished meeting with all the municipalities, we're also going to be reaching out to the detachment boards to start bringing the plan forward to them. They were consulted on the development of the plan, but it's really starting to bring it forward and then having them become more integrated within the integration table. And around housing and homelessness, our Dufferin County Equity Collaborative, the Housing and Homelessness Work Group is the lead. Mental health and well-being, the Hills of Headwaters Ontario Health Team, the Mental Health and Addictions Community Working Group, where a large number of organizations come together in partnership with that. They're the lead. Family support, we have Dufferin Child and Family Services. And food insecurity, the Dufferin County Equity Collaborative, so the subcommittee Dufferin Food Access comes together and does some great work. As part of the plan as well, we do annually bring forward a report, and we're doing that performance measurement of how we're doing throughout the 4-year plan. So we do look at outcomes and performance measures for each of the priority areas. There's a performance measurement dashboard, and then of course that annual report that I just mentioned. And I just want to bring attention, the measures that are selected, they're a mix of those tracked by local agencies and those taken from broader surveys like the census, the National Housing Survey, etc. And they may not always be available right away. So we're really looking at even 2026 now before we'll start to get data that we'll be able to use as we move forward, but we're still looking at those local agencies that are also collecting data, and that'll be included. Most recently, we had our results posted from the 2024, so you can expect to see a 2025 report coming out in 2026, where we'll be able to reflect back. That's a good segue into talking about the update report. So it is available of June of each year. The priority areas are all updated there. We also focus on achievements from each of the municipalities as well. And the 2024 update report focused on updates from the league tables and a wrap up of the 21 to 24 community safety wellbeing plan. And the role for local municipalities. Okay, so I do want to say kudos to Shelburne. I'm going to go through a highlight that we were able to draw from the 2023 update. And that was really, again, focusing on the prior plans. So when I talk about each of the priority areas, that'll be reflecting back on the former plan. But it's so important for municipalities to know that everybody has a role in this, and the great work that happens in each of the municipalities really goes towards supporting the community safety wellbeing plan. So first, I just want to start with a great big thank you around that. So this is a long list, but with Shelburne, when we reflected back around the mental health and well-being priority, staff attended mental health in the workplace training, staff and council attended various sessions on that topic as well, and a number of professional organizational seminars throughout the year, including, I believe, such organizations as AMO came and presented. And the benefits program for staff includes access to a range of supports for mental health and well-being. Regular bulletins are provided to staff on what is available, for example, your employee assistance program. Around housing and homelessness, there's a community grants program placed a high level importance on food insecurity, and council supported local organizations such as the local food bank. Council serves as the board for Fiddleville Nonprofit Housing, and the housing units there predominantly support income challenged residents. The town's planning and development is based on supporting housing diversification and intensification to allow more affordable housing to be built where the developer chooses to provide this housing option. Under the substance use and addiction priority, staff are provided training in areas such as safe handling of sharps and naloxone use. Discrimination, marginalization, and racism. The town has a DEI committee that is very active. Committee representation includes 3 members of council, which reflects the priority placed on DEI. The committee meets monthly, and community events led or supported by DEI include Black History Month, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and Orange Shirt Day. Attendance at other community events to share DEI work. So in 2023, accessibility was also added to the DEI committee portfolio, and they've initiated a range of new projects to support accessibility, including how to make more downtown businesses accessible. And under the community safety and violence prevention, the town had recently completed a significant review of speed limits and traffic safety and traffic calming. All town roads, with a few exceptions, are 40 kilometers an hour. And the town was also investigating automated speed enforcement. And the town regularly shares information on emergency planning for your home and family, including fire evacuation strategies for each home. So just a few there. That was a long list. So next steps with the plan. We'll continue with our quarterly meetings of the Community Safety Wellbeing Integration Table. The implementation and communication strategies and annual action plans are also occurring. And as I mentioned, once we complete our trips to all the municipalities to share the work from the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, it will be posted and it will be communicated out. And I just want to say we'll be definitely leaning on all of you to communicate this out, and hopefully we can have a link posted on your website that would lead back to the plan as well, or if you would be able to post it, we would really appreciate that. As well with next steps, it's developing relationships, because really that's what it's all about, is the relationships that we have throughout the county. And I would like to say that that's why our talk about integration and collaboration, and that we are so successful with that in Dufferin County, because we do build those great relationships. The update report I mentioned before, the next update report will be coming out in June. And that would be a reflection on 2025. We're looking already in 2027, we'll be completing a community survey, and that'll help us move towards I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but developing the next 4-year community safety well-being plan. So we would be looking at developing that in 2028. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you so much. Keep in touch. Posted is our email where you can reach out to us. You're also welcome to reach out directly to me, and I'll make sure any questions that you have I can bring forward to the integration table. So thank you, everyone.
Well, again, thank you very much, Brenda. We look forward to the next report that's coming and continuing with our engagement process.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
With that, we get our motion to. Walter, second. All in favor? That's curious. It's really.
Right?
I just wanted to lay it.
He's like, wait a minute, are we adjourning?
Yeah, that now takes us to council inquiries. Inquiries.
Just concerning the baseball diamonds by the school. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of traffic that's motorized traffic that's been doing donuts on those center fields. So just wanted to let everybody, we had our tournament there, it's fall tournament there. Last week, the week before, and the diamond behind the red barn was dug up pretty bad. So that's a byline. I think it is, but I'm bringing it up as a notice just for everybody to kind of.
Just wondering, because school property, we are following and they go on and charge on school property.
Your worship, no, we can only charge, for, business taking place in town.
Diamond is on town property.
No, that diamond, but
We don't use the school diamond anymore.
no, but it's a little donating around there, it's what I'm trying to think of.
That being said, do you have an idea, like patrols are taking place, but
I have no idea, cause I just saw it Saturday morning when I was there, so it's like first game Saturday morning at 8 o'clock there. There's some kicked the dirt back around and stuff, so I'm assuming Friday night, maybe, I don't know, so.
the issue there, so the bylaw officers here is maybe a bit, there's really nothing.
Yeah, I just want everybody to be aware, that's all, that it's still an issue.
Yeah.
Just don't wanna see, spend a lot of money on those diamonds and stuff, so.
Wait, but police services board meeting, I can bring it up there, maybe we can use the.
I was gonna say,
Around,
yeah.
they're on TV.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask, can OPP engage at that point? Absolutely, yes, okay.
Just to add to that, that is also happening in municipal parking lot behind yeah, and that would be the south, no, yeah, south.
Yeah.
South, behind my place. So a large ATV, he went over somebody's fence yesterday. And I have images and stuff like that, and we wish to. I can share that stuff as well, it's an issue more than just. Just the flow lines now. The nice weather brings them out.
You're the deputy mayor, so that would be appreciated if those, I'd appreciate it come in writing. So while we do have staff on, who know they're often out attending to request things.
Yeah.
There's dogs off leash, right? We're out patrolling, but if it's happening more often than not, if you could just let us know. That would be appreciated, so we can know what days, times to gauge where they need to patrol.
We submit those.
Yeah, I'll send those, yeah. And,
Bylaw.
so, yeah.
Just what's on file.
Good question for Gina, oh, sorry, we got that one.
I just want to clarify that some of these actions that you're describing are criminal.
Yeah,
So those are police enforcement opportunities, right? In terms of, so we not, I know everybody's busy, but you can immediately share the issues with us, regardless of the fact that our bylaw might not. At least I would encourage people to call non-emergency, non-emergency, so that a patrol can be issued and that potential circumstance can be dealt with, like there's video on evidence similar to anything, plate number, they have the capacity to investigate.
This type of place.
They don't have space.
They don't have a place.
Sometimes the person is recognizable and the open pool will send somebody
Yeah,
else,
suppose that.
does anybody know who this may or may not be?
I'm a person involved, the property involved, they call the OCD.
Okay, good.
Anyway, question for Jim about the cuts. The curb cuts along the rail trail.
Yes, I did look at those again. There is an asphalt apron in there, so not as easy as I thought just to cut the curbs. We'd have to do a bit more work there yet, so I've got to talk with staff about that first, but. That is a possibility for cutting the curbs on Main Street just to the county trail. Right now they're full curb there, so there's. If you have an ATV or somebody walking a snowmobile, you have to jump those two curbs, so. Something we'll look at there, but not quite as easy as I thought initially, so.
I didn't realize, so I took my bike over it.
Okay.
Let's say some.
Seeing nothing further, we'll then move on to our first item this evening, which is a report from the Director of Financial Services regarding the 2024 asset management plan and June 2025 amendment.
Thank you, and to Deputy Mayor. I'm just going to introduce our asset management and GIS coordinator, Chad. This is the last leg in our asset management journey. To comply with regulation 58817. Doesn't mean that we're done, it just means that we've complied with all the regulations. Asset management will continue annually. What we've done in this amendment to meet the requirements was introduce the asset category, which describes the level of service, including service objectives, performance measures, and performance targets over a 10-year period. And it also aligns with our 10-year financial plan that council has just adopted at the last meeting. So it allows us to achieve better efficiencies and effectiveness of asset management. And it assists with manageable and affordable service levels. And Chad will go into more detail on the plan. Adopting it tonight has no financial impact. It just allows us to be compliant and be qualified for any grants that can come forward. We can check that box that we've met this condition. And I'll turn it over to Chad. And walk you through the amendments to the plan that we've been working on since we adopted last year's plan. There's a lot of pages. I was like, oh my gosh.
Good evening, Dr. Mayor, member of council. I'm here to discuss the June 2025 amendments to the 2024 asset management plan. So outlining the presentation, begin with an introduction, look at some of the legislative timelines mentioned through the staff report, launch some relevant concepts and terminology, look at methodology to discuss the new or amended content of the asset management plan. Following that, we'll look at some limitations and we'll end with next steps and question period. So I'd ask that you please hold the questions until the end of the presentation. Okay, so Ontario Regulation 58/17 asset management planning for municipal infrastructure. It includes timelines for specific reporting documents to be completed as well as the content to be included in each. The first reporting document is a strategic asset management policy, which was due July 1st, 2019. The next two documents are updates to the town's asset management plan, which will contain with detail at each phase. The July 2022 deadline was inclusive of core municipal infrastructure. 2024 encompassed all other municipal infrastructure, and 2025 requires municipalities to discuss and propose level of service. Each asset management plan must be enforced by the executive lead of the municipality and adopted by a resolution passed by the municipality. Looking at what is in scope of the June 2025 amendment to the asset management plan. The same content as last year, so it's all municipal infrastructure, quantity replacement costs, age, addition, a life cycle strategy, risk, and all of our 10-year plan period. The difference this year is that the level of service section, there is a discussion of proposed levels of service. So in terms of what's included in the June 2025 amendment, it is limited to enhancing the existing level of service framework for each asset category. We'll have a closer look at these terms over the next few slides. But within the level of service framework, there are service parameters, objective statements, performance measures, and performance targets. In addition, for each asset category, there is an assessment, service levels, discussion of service level options, review of relevant feedback from community engagement, which was through our level of service rather questionnaire open from February 3rd to March 12th of this year. New or amended content has been identified with the tax header level section or subsection. So this does mean all other content in the 2024 estimate plan is unchanged, such as the life cycle strategy, risk management. However, regarding command, it does play a key role in level of service and asset management plan in general. It should be noted that the third review is underway by the Ministry of Finance regarding growth projections that will be assigned to Lever County. New projections will differ from the future demand that is currently found in 2024 estimate plan, as this section has not been. Okay, so looking at some concepts. Related to level of service. The first is the level of service framework. This is a system of defining, measuring, monitoring, and reporting the performance of the organization. It considers whether assets are providing the correct service and whether they are meeting the expectations of the community and the organization. And within a level of service framework, there are service parameters. These are characteristics or aspects of the service that are delivered by the organization and experienced by the customer. So simply put, that's whether the service can be accessible or safe or reliable. The objective statements qualitatively describes what the organization intends to deliver for each service parameter. So this relates to the expectation of the customer as written from their point of view. So an example, using reliability as a service parameter, the objective statement could be to minimize unexpected downtime to ensure predictable service delivery. The next term is performance measure. This quantitatively describes whether the service, or quantitatively measures, whether the service is achieving the objective statement. And the performance target is a specific target related to the performance measure, and it is strategic in a way that needs to be realistic and aligned with operational expectations. This is the level of service visual that we looked at last June. It highlights the full level of service cycle. So on the left, step one is to identify what is important to the customer. We can use the water category as an example. So one might be this consistent water service. Next, we need to establish service parameters to focus on those important aspects of the service. So let's say the service parameter for the reliability. Then writing an objective statement to describe what extent of the service the organization intends to deliver. Well, for reliable water service, the objective statement could be to minimize unforeseen disruptions to water service by ensuring the integrity of the water network. And then determining quantifiable performance measures, one for reliable water, the number of water main breaks that result in a loss of pressure or service. And the final step is to monitor and review all aspects of this cycle to ensure that the relevance and aligns with the customer and organization. Moving on to the methodology section of the presentation. Each of these items appears in the level of service section for each asset category. So these are part of the enhancements to the level of service framework. So starting with the service objective and performance subsection. First, a standardized set of service parameters has been used So this is the first asset management plan. This extent of analysis related to level of service. For this reason, to establish a baseline, the service parameters for all asset categories have been revised to capacity, quality, reliability, and responsiveness. The purpose of this is to ensure that asset categories can be assessed on a similar scale and that benefits for financial and operational plan. Another purpose is to simply provide council, staff, and the public an opportunity to become familiar with public service before the complexity. There are many other important and relevant service parameters for different asset categories, such as accessibility and safety. And some of these were included in the 2024 asset management plan presented last year. They are still active and part of the town's level of service framework. They will be assessed for relevance over time, along with every other performance. And they may be reintroduced to future iterations of the asset management plan as the town's asset management program continues to mature. Second, performance measures are organized into three category tables. There are non-legislative, which are performance measures established by the municipality. There are legislative performance measures required through Ontario Regulation 588.17. And there are legislative descriptive performance measures, which also are required through Ontario Regulation 588.17 are written descriptions. Moving on to the community engagement subsection of level of service. This subsection discusses relevant statistics from the level of service resident questionnaire, which becomes available from February 5th to March 12th, 2025. The results discussed in the asset management plan are limited to questions related to satisfaction with infrastructure, importance of services, changes to level of service, and the willingness to pay for a higher level of service. The results have been summarized for conciseness. And the results discussed for each asset category are either directly related to the service or indirect. For example, would be the machinery and equipment asset category. There were no on the questionnaire from factors, but there were questions related to satisfaction with sidewalks, outdoor recreation, and open space, which are all maintained by machinery and equipment. Moving on to the service level assessment subsection, this is where the proposed level of service is discussed, which is the legislative requirement for the 2025 asset management plan. This subsection begins with an assessment of current performance, whether measures were met in 2024, and includes some information as to why or why not. And next, those levels of service are discussed in this subsection. These are the targets for each performance measure. They are discussed using the three criteria of alignment with service objectives, alignment with community expectations, and alignment with council priorities. Moving on to the service level options subsection. This discusses options for different levels of service, which is also new content required with July 1st legislative deadlines. There are 3 paragraphs in this section which provide a high-level discussion of maintaining, decreasing, or increasing level of service. And similar to the service level subsection, service level assessment subsection, the 3 criteria used in the evaluation are achieving service objectives, meeting community expectations, and supporting council priorities. Looking at some limitations for the new level of service content, the first is data availability. Some performance measures have been noted to be awaiting further data collection. This is due to a strategy for collecting and recording data is still being developed. Data for the performance measure was not included. If the performance measure is new at the time of the June 2025 amendment, the data would not yet be. Second limitation is data integrity. Similar to the previous limitation, from a quality control standpoint, it is better to omit data if it is potentially inaccurate or broken. And then as highlighted in the previous slides, much of this enhanced level of service framework is new. So new data collection initiatives to support them are either beginning or existing and being refined. And the third limitation is the length of the planning period. The life cycle strategy of the asset management plan still reaches out to 2034. Over the course of the decade, a lot of uncontrollable factors can come into play, impacting operating capital costs. And significant changes may render performance targets unachievable, or they could have legislative pressure. So in terms of how limitations can be addressed, A consistent commitment to performance measures is step one. Performance measures provide valuable insight for planning. And for the data to be useful, it must be complete, consistently collected each year. Next, continuously reviewing and identifying areas for improvement. Each asset management presentation from 2022, 2024, and tonight mentions this has a strategy to address limitations, relevant for level of service as well. If a performance measure is determined over time to not be relevant, or the method for assessing service level does not provide any benefit, that content should be revised or discontinued. For that reason, much of the level of service content being used for this year, it's likely that some elements will be identified as need to be revised or refined. And last, be mindful of the level of detail that is included in the asset management plan is also a method to address these limitations, specifically related to length of plan period. Some of the content in the level of service framework is specific and must be specific, such as performance authority. However, some level of service subsections are high level or qualitative in their format, such as service level assessment and service level option subsection. This allows the discussion to provide information to be applied on a broader scale and not exclusively for the plan period. And now looking at the next steps, first for the asset management plan, legislation requires the documents to be updated every 5 years. Following the adoption of the asset management plan for the July 1st, 2025 deadline, annual review of asset management progress with council is required. And the next steps for the town's asset management programs, first to continue to analyze relevant data, to focus on the recommendations that are identified at the end of each asset category. And last, to continue to evaluate the program suitability to make adjustments where that concludes the presentation. I can take any questions you may have. No, it's okay.
You have a question?
And the answer is.
Thank you. So I would just like to thank Chad for all the work that he has put into this. Not just this most recent update, but asset management in general.
Yeah.
And since he has come on board, I think everyone can agree with me that things have improved incredibly over what we used to work with. And for it to be for us to have the amount of data that you don't even see that exists behind this report is incredible. And I don't know, I get excited about it. But without Chad, normally we would have had to outsource this project and pay a consultant. And I think by having it done in-house and so many meetings that we had, that it makes everybody aware of what we've got, what we need to do, and where we're headed. So I just like to thank Chad for doing this and doing such a fantastic job of it.
It's good to have someone that knows the ins and outs as well, right? Like, it's great to share it with staff, but we actually have someone as well that's here that, you know, you can recall on things if you need an answer right away or something like that. So that's good. But yeah, the plan is there's lots of information. Like if anyone watching wants to go and read it, I mean, I think it's 118 pages or maybe more, but whew, there's a lot of information there.
Great.
And it's more responsive. In general, I would think, the time you wait for a consultant to do what they do, I think this process is much more efficient and probably a lot more cost effective.
And it's like a live document too, right? You know,
Lots of
it's,
work results.
yeah. So that's awesome.
I will read the recommendation or ask for a voter seconder. So it is be it resolved in the council of the town of Shelburne receives staff report LS 2025-06. Further, that council adopts the 2024 asset management plan as amended June 23rd, 2025, in accordance with Ontario Regulation 588-17. By Dan, second by Len, all in favor. That does bring us to our second report tonight which is SBA 2025-01. There they are. This is regarding sewage capacity allocation. It does look like Steve might be in an airport. At least one of the two Steves.
Yeah, good evening, council, and I do apologize. I am still in an airport in Thunder Bay, but we'll try and get through this, and Steve Weaver has helped for anything if there's any issues, so.
He's gotta run for a gate.
Like at 9:15, we're good. Yeah, we're good at the airport.
So I guess we can start, I'm assuming council has a copy of the report available. I'll try not to bore council with the engineering details, but ultimately we went through the same process that we normally do with the assessment of allocation for the existing water pollution control plan. That analysis is in the more detailed SBA report attached to the municipal engineering report. I think the only thing I would like to bring council's attention to, and it would be on page 8 of 11, if you have the opportunity to slide to it. If you don't, I can explain it. I think I've explained this to council a few times that this would eventually happen, is as the growth of Shelburne has increased, we will get to the point where using the 3-year and the 5-year average of sewage flows did not make sense. This was the year that happened. So the sewage flows this year were 3,186 cubic meters. If we had have continued to use the 3-year and 5-year average, we'd be missing the mark by about 300 cubic meters. So I just wanted to let council know that was the only change this year from a technical perspective, that we did drop that contingency allowance that we were running between 150 and 200 cubic meters, and we're actually using previous year's information. Any questions from council on that before I get into the more the details of the municipal report? Well, I'll assume with that there won't be questions at this point on that, and we can move forward. So with the municipal engineers report, we have put forward a recommendation of 5 cubic meters towards the ICI developments that have not yet been completed and were part of the last report that was put forward. We've also put forward a recommendation of maintaining the 10 cubic meters for residential and mixed use. That's kind of been a buffer or an allocation that Steve and I have felt was reasonable and could be supported, and allowed those sort of smaller intensification stage 1 and 2 developments to move forward. From this point, we're really only asking council then to receive the report. As council knows, decisions are generally made when the actual application comes forward, and we're still recommending that moving forward. The one thing that we probably need to bring attention to, and this is on both page 2 and further page 3 of the report. 2 things have happened. One being that the previous allocation for 600 Main Street has now lapsed as of May 30th of this year. So that did add some allocation back into the number. There was approximately 55 units that had lapsed there less than a few weeks ago. So the available allocation is 82 cubic meters, even though we're really only recommending the 15 cubic meters at this point because of that lapse. The other piece to this, if council recalls, we did indicate that we should have some reserves or sort of hold as priority as we brought forward to council. And we're just not able to put that sort of priority piece in place right now, but council will still be allowed to make those decisions, or will still be requested to them make those decisions as allocations come forward. So I think otherwise, those were the main points of the analysis this time around that we wanted to get forward. That ultimately both Steve Weaver and myself will bring forward any applications for actual allocation consideration at time of those subdivision or those application approvals. That will continue as we have. And at this point, we are just asking council to still support the 15 cubic meters as a 5 and 10 moving forward. So because I'm worried there might be an announcement in the background, I'll maybe be quiet and let others ask any questions that they may have at this point.
Can we put 600 Main Street's allocation into reserve?
Yeah.
Because the fact that there are potential people looking at buying that property, having the allocation, I don't say given to them, but being available for them, would maybe make that property sale move ahead, and because it is pretty well there for completion at this point, there's not much for them to do to finish it. So can we put that in reserve for 600? Not necessarily for 600, but just put it in reserve, period. Saying that it's not gone, but it's available.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe what we're kind of doing by not allocating anything more than the 15 cubic meters to. We're kind of saying we don't think it makes sense until this is sorted through, until council has a good understanding of the situation. We're not saying that there might not be other things that come forward too, but I think that's what we're kind of doing by not allocating anything more than the 15 because of that situation, if that answers the question.
I was actually gonna bring that up as well, because I was just concerned with maybe the legalities regarding that as well. If have those homes been sold in there? Do you know? Like, was there any kind of deposits put down with the previous developer? Like, see, I thought so, but I wasn't sure. So then if somebody else buys that property and they move forward and we don't have the allocation for them to move forward, are we liable at any point with regards to that? So, I mean, that's a kind of just a quick question, but I'm glad that you were putting the allocation aside anyway, so.
Steve.
Yeah, I could maybe try to be helpful here through the deputy mayor to Councillor Wagner. So the allocation for 600 Main, we documented that all the way through as running with the draft plan approvals for subdivision and condominium that they had, and also documented, all the way through, and it was clear and understood that if the approvals on the planning side lapse, that the servicing allocation expires with that, and that's actually embedded right in town policy as well as a practice. So I think it would be not a very strong case for somebody to argue that something's been taken away that wasn't known to be lost if you lose your planning approvals. We have had some inquiries about the property since it went into receivership recently, and we've been informing those inquirers that there's two things that they would need to secure in order to move the project forward. One is they would have to request to the town, which would go to council as the approval authority, to reinstate the draft plan approvals, which they have up to 5 years to do. And by reinstating the draft plan approvals, council would also then have to approve reinstating the servicing allocation for the development. Otherwise, the draft plan approvals don't really mean much because they wouldn't be able to build without the servicing allocated. To me, those two requests should go hand in hand. To Councillor Bernardo's question about reserving today or at a future report for that development specifically, we didn't include that as a specific recommendation in this report, mainly because of the concern that they do have any future owner has up to 5 years to request that reinstatement. And if you reserve it, tonight in a resolution, that means we can't allocate it to anybody else that comes forward in the meantime, unless council were to reverse that reservation later on, say through the next annual report. So it is there. That's the good news. It kind of goes back into the pot and it is there if somebody does move that development forward, which is the hope, because that's the quickest path to some building permits on that development. But if no one moves forward on that, there is a bit more capacity then in the pot for others who would otherwise be waiting on that. And we've notified those developers as well that there are some changes from last year's report to this year's in terms of the total amount of capacity available for them to move forward. So I think there was one other question by Councillor Wegner as well, whether the units were sold. One of the things a landowner can do when they have draft plan approval is they can take deposits to reserve units. So it's not really a formal purchase and sale agreement, but a deposit saying, you know, I have a unit on the plan that's reserved for me. And with draft approvals lapsed, the owners can no longer maintain those deposits. So anyone who had purchased a unit, and we have heard from some of those purchasers, my understanding is legally they should be getting their deposits back, and they would have to enter into negotiation with any new builder or developer to repurchase a unit going forward.
I mean, that's a little comforting at least, because my heart kind of goes out to anyone who's waiting still for their home in there. So if I could just quickly follow up with that, what would be our responsibility then with this allocation going back into the pot for say, for another developer wanting that allocation? So do we have a responsibility then to offer it up before this property potentially gets sold? Or can we still kind of hold on to it?
It is there as an unallocated capacity. And the third point in the recommendation is that we're recommending that capacity only be formally allocated when there's a planning approval that goes along with that. So that's not a decision that we think we will have to bring forward a report or that you'll have to make in the near term, because there aren't any applications that are, you know, just on the cusp of being ready for a recommendation and approval. But in the case that there's multiple developments that are on a similar timeline, you know, competing for that limited unallocated capacity, that's where our servicing capacity or servicing allocation policies come into play. And what it would prioritize in normal course is anything that's already in the built up area is infill and readily serviceable. It's got pipes at the doorstep or in the ground. That's you know, the priority, because you don't want to service entirely new areas of the town based on the limited remaining capacity. And for the most part, I think you know, those with lands that can be developed, they are well aware that those lands are tied to the waste treatment plant upgrades that need to happen later, and those that have smaller infill developments, much of that can be accommodated within the current plant. But anything large will require the waste treatment plant upgrades.
Okay, thank you. That actually makes sense, that, you know, something that's already sort of there becomes a priority within the allocation policy. So thank you very much.
I'm just happy it's not within my term.
Be happy to remind me of anything.
Any other questions? And thank both sides very much.
Yeah.
Little pretty one, but I'll read it nonetheless, but sometimes it aids. So then I'll not reading it all up for a second here. So be it resolved that the council of the town of Shelburne receives report SBA 2025-01 sewage capacity allocation dated June 17th, 2025 for information purposes. And that council established the following servicing review reserves. A, 5 meters cubed per day for ICI development in stage 1 and 2 areas. For the priority of ICI developments with an application process, being CHP commercial 117 line. And B, 10 meters cubed per day for residential and mixed use infill and intensification, the stage 1 and 2 areas. For the priority developments, which are downtown and intensification. And that allocation of servicing capacity will be considered at the time of development approval the priority projects identified for SPA 2025-1. Moved by Walter, seconded by Lindsay. All in favor? Next up, we do have a request from Shelter Spring Slopage. So we're not here just for this bit of new application.
You that, Mayor, they submit their third trigger row submittings, they don't normally come, they usually just submit a letter. Goes along with their,
We've done this 2 years already.
Yeah.
Year 3.
Yeah.
They did that now.
Any questions beyond that? Word second. By Walter, second by Dan. All in favor? Here it is. Do we have any notice of the motion signs? Seeing none, that takes us on to communications. Anybody have anything you'd like to pull out? Walter?
Number 5, the application for 114 Main Street. Yeah, that's a heritage building. Has it gone to the Heritage Committee for comments?
There, so the map on the notice is correct. 14 Main Street West, which is the west side of Owen Street.
Yeah, well, that makes a little difference.
Yeah, I was like, what is this?
So it's so within the heritage business district. To the arts, yeah, sure.
Maybe just directly into the comment anyway. I don't want to see what kind of.
Yeah. Well, it's to allow a residential unit on the main floor. So that's from where it was positioned, I was like, that's odd, it's retail space there, so. Even myself, I was like, what is this?
It's west of TD Bank.
Okay. Okay,
Rest of
Still-
back.
still needs
How far west, I don't.
yeah, me either, I know.
2, 3, 4 units, the west, that would be the other side of.
Beyond the gate.
No, it's not that far.
It's the back end of Shannon's Tavern.
Yes.
Oh, the back end of it. Okay.
The residential on the back end of that. Or they wanna bring that residential all the way to the extreme.
No, it's just for one unit, it currently existed for many years, and this has been a bylaw enforcement and building code, fire code issue. We now have the owner of the property willing to follow the proper processes, so.
Okay. So there's already one there.
Yes.
So it's
Gotcha.
yes, but regulation.
Many years.
Compliance.
Okay,
It's been bylaw building.
I see,
It's
okay,
about-
yeah,
Battle was a great word, yeah.
okay, that makes a little more sense then, because I was like, what the heck is this? I was concerned for a moment. That makes sense.
And number 9, the correspondence with Watts and Associates regarding that, just want to highlight that they for making for us there. And I'd like the board just to thank Bio on their efforts for what they've done. And I think as council, we should all be thanking them because I know they do tremendous work. The efforts that they have to go through to get that work done, sometimes it's not pleasant for them.
Yeah.
And so we, maybe as council, can pass over that.
You always got a smile on their face, Walter.
Always smile. They have to have, fortunately, but the people sometimes you're dealing with, I just want to give them a hard time. So, I just think there's a form of appreciation to go down to staff at that level there. And maybe all of staff are having to suffer the heat this morning as well. Yeah, I think if it was me, I would have said that, but it's not involved there, because they should come, not do it by whatever means, you want me to work from, but the fact that they're dedicated enough to stay here at town hall, working that heat, I think shows you how dedicated our staff is, and we as council, I go, the staff there.
Yeah, just for those watching, there was no air conditioning this morning in town hall for some time, so. That's what Walter was referring to.
Also, one point.
No.
I'm gonna secretary that should receive all this under communications. By Dan, seconded by Lindsay, all in favor? Carries. That now takes us to the confirming by, negative Luperna seconder, by Walter, second by Len, all in favor? That carries. And then the favorite one of all, motion to adjourn. By Dan, seconded by Walter. There you go. All in favor, saved you. That carries.
For saving him.
Yeah, I'm just gonna cross my arms.